first thing that I do is we talk about vision. You could use the analogy of a GPS system, right? You're not going to just get in your car and start driving. You're not going to put a random GPS address. You need to know where you're going.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Captain Coder podcast. I'm very excited to have Liz here with me today. Liz, tell me just a little bit about yourself. How do you help your clients?
Yes, well, I'm really excited to be here today. So thank you for having me on. And I'm a business coach. I live and work in New York City. And what I do is I coach newer entrepreneurs mostly, some people who are in business for maybe 1 to 3 or 5 years. And I coach people to get unstuck so that they can launch and grow an abundant business.
That is really awesome. Oh no, is coaching your first kind of foray into entrepreneurship? Like what's your background?
It is not at all my first foray. In fact, all my previous forays into into entrepreneurship is what brought me to coaching. So it all started when I was 6 years old and my mother said, I don't want to live in Pittsburgh anymore. I want to move to a farm. And so she did that with my dad. And then 3 years later, he moved back to Pittsburgh because farming turns out this was not his thing. And she bought a lot
It's
of
a hard job.
It is a hard job. Whenever my kids complained about homework, I was like, yeah, well, people always say, I have to walk in the snow. And I'm like, well, I could only do my homework after I got back from the barn. And, at one point we had 300 sheep.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. So there was a lot going on. And the main way that we earned money was through creating products. Like we spun the wool and we created and did sheepskin products like clothing, slippers. We sold the lamb meat as well. So I was like 9. I have this great picture of me at age 11 spinning wool in front of a group of people who were watching me, and I was telling them all about how, the virtues of wool and what was so great about it. And the only downside to that was my mom used to dress us up in colonial outfits to do those.
Oh, no. Not what an 11-year-old kid wants to do.
No, not at all. But that's how we made money. And so the thing was, my mom was not a particularly good business person. She was a very creative person, very forward thinking. She was doing organic before anybody else was. And she, it was like the HSAs and the homespun and all that she was doing, but she wasn't a very good business person. And so I learned how to work really hard, but I also was very frustrated because it wasn't a success. It could have been. God, if we'd had social media now, the way we do now, then it would have been a whole other world. So some of my inspiration for being a business coach is because I know that people struggle in their businesses because they're not sure what to do. They need a sounding board. They need accountability. They need a system, and they need something to follow to help them to launch and grow that business. And so I learned a lot of that through the years. Starting with that, I moved to New York City. I started a computer consulting business with my husband, and I eventually got tired of the tech. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to coach people individually. So that's what I do now.
There's nothing wrong with tech. It just changes every 5 seconds.
Right. Listen, I live around tech. I love it. I just like talking to people rather than machines.
Yeah, I can understand that for sure. Well, in working with a bunch of entrepreneurs, I mean, you've been one yourself, you watched your mom do it. What do you think is something that we tend to get wrong when we first start our businesses?
That is a great question. Again, of course, I am a coach, so I'm going to say this is so predictable. I'm going to say this, which is you don't have people that are helping you that know about business. So one of the mistakes that people make is they ask people who aren't business coaches or lawyers or accountants for advice. And sometimes those people are people like your mom or your sister or your aunt, or, and they're so supportive until you say, you start talking about money, and then they're like, maybe you should just go get a job, and don't
Yes.
those folks either have a job already and don't want to be doing it anymore. It's a lot of my clients, or they already gave up on that, or they don't want to do that. And entrepreneurship is more interesting to them. So ask people who are knowledgeable. If you're not able or ready or willing to hire a coach, you can use it. There are other free resources out there that you can use.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that's so funny because I started this business almost 4 years ago. I had another business before this. Um, and so I've been an entrepreneur for all of my 30s for sure, and in my late 20s. And my brother, who is a software developer high up in the company, like we were kind of doing we were kind of comparing notes last week, and I was like, "Don't you ever want to do this for yourself instead of working for somebody else?" And he was absolutely not.
It's a whole
Never.
other world. It's a whole other
It
world.
is. It's yeah, it's totally different. And those are the kind of people I think a lot of us that are entrepreneurs or that even have side hustles understand. Friends that are your other entrepreneurs are so invaluable because they understand things on a level that you just literally can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, it's interesting because my father worked for Westinghouse for 43 years. Essentially the same job, different projects, but the same job. He didn't go into management because he really enjoyed what he did, which was he was an engineer and he really enjoyed that.
Mhm.
He was an expert in his field. And meanwhile, my mother went the complete opposite direction. And so
Yeah.
I really had both examples in my life. I had the example of my mother who had to hustle to make something happen. And then my dad, who was just, every day, 9 to 5, went to work, but he had his weekends free to go play tennis, or that was his particular hobby that he did,
Mhm.
or outlet that he did. And of course, spent time with us on the weekends. So it was very helpful to have him. And of course, he had a predictable income, whereas we did not have a predictable income. People like security. And that is one reason why a lot of people would like to be entrepreneurs, but don't actually go into being actual entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and is there something that you see where, when people start a business, they're not thinking through some of those things? Do you think they take the leap of faith, or is it that they just don't simply know the processes to put in place to have more predictability, to have more security?
Well, this is one of the things, and again, we'll talk about this later, but I have a quiz that I have people do, which is helps you to figure out your CEO personality. And there are really 4 different types of personalities. There's the chief enthusiasm officer, and that's the person that's constantly coming up with new ideas, a little bit of shiny object syndrome, jumping around, really relationship focused, really, like I am a chief enthusiasm officer in that I've also got a side hustle, which is I do this whole thing with bluegrass. And I'm starting to develop a website for people to find jams near them. And I'm working. That's all I want to work on. Like, not that
Yeah,
I
because
don't,
it's fun right now.
it's totally fun. It's really fun. Yeah, to play music with people. It's a lot of fun. So chief enthusiasm officers are jumping all around for joy and doing all kinds of things, but they're also maybe not getting the traction that they want. Then there's the opposite, which is the chief expert officer, which moves so slowly. It's a person who's like has to have all the analytics in front of them first and has to really understand what's going to happen and how to predict it and move forward. And those are the people that are less inclined to just quit their job and go, well, I was just going to try it. They are less inclined to do that because they need to make sure that it's going to work. And we know that
Mhm.
guarantees. Then there's also the chief empowerment officer, which is so focused on other people, and the chief excellence officer, which could kind of lean towards perfectionism. So each little quadrant, as you'll see if you take the quiz, you'll see that there's different pluses and minuses to them. And so uh, the the idea is how do you play on your strengths, and then how do you handle some of the things that are harder for you so that you can keep that predictable. So to go back to your question, what makes it easier and harder for some people is how do you work? How do you work? Are you I classified it into 3 different types. There's the time, there's task, and there's target. So the time people like to do that time blocking thing where you put on your schedule, your calendar.
Uh-huh.
The task people love those blogs that talk about the 1-3-5 method, where you do one big task and three medium tasks and five little tasks every day. And they're like, I'm checking off my tasks. I'm so happy. And then you've got the deadline people, the target people, and those are people that work best when there's a deadline. And that's definitely me. I will do anything.
We don't call those procrastinators. That's what I've called myself my entire life.
Well, that is the downside to being a type of person. But the upside to being that is that you might never get it done if you didn't have that target date to do it. So scheduling things, and of course, everybody's a little bit of each one. So
yeah. So depending, I mean, does this depend on your personality, or is there something where you would say, every new entrepreneur should start with X, Y, Z?
That's a great thing to ask. When I had my first child, I realized that suddenly the whole entire world knew way much more about raising children and having babies than I did. The only problem was all the information was conflicting. Some people said you should not sleep with your baby. Some people said you should sleep with your baby. Some people said breast milk was best. Some people said formula is best. Some people said, sleep on their backs, sleep on their side, right? So I was considering at that time writing a book called Some People Say, and it was like, some people say you should da-da-da, because there's value to that. Yeah, I'll get better sleep if I don't sleep with my baby. But some people say it's better to sleep with your baby because da-da-da-da, they get better sleep, whatever it is. So it's the same thing with entrepreneurship, which is some people say you should time block. Some people say you should make a list and do 1-3-5 every day. Some people say target. So the coaching program that I do is really helping people to find out not what is right, but what is right for you. How do you work best? Because I will tell you that there's one common trait amongst all entrepreneurs, which is that they always think that there's a better way that they could be doing something. And if only they could get their act together to do it that right way, whatever the right.
Yeah, well, we could find the secret formula or the hack or
yes. Right. And that's why we're always reading books and we're always listening to podcasts and we're always doing things, and then things resonate with us and we try it for a certain amount of time. And what I find is a lot of my clients think that they should be doing it a certain way, but when they go to do it, there's a lot of resistance that comes up to doing it. And we have to understand that's the other big advantage of, I've always said, entrepreneurship is the best personal development workshop you're ever going to do, because it will challenge you in every possible way. And if you say you're going to do something and then you go to actually do it, then you don't do it, if resistance comes up, there's reasons for that resistance, and that will reveal a lot about your working style.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. I think everybody is wired just a little bit different. And we think that there's one right answer. And in reality, it's the right answer. We need to find the right answer for us. What works for somebody else doesn't necessarily work for us, right? I tell that to clients all the time when they come to me and they say, well, this competitor over here is doing this with their website or this with their marketing. I'm like, that may not be the right answer for you. We have to find the right answer for you and for your customer. So as somebody who falls victim to the constant learning cycle of entrepreneurship, I appreciate hearing that, it's really just all about what works best for us and what we need to do.
Yeah. And the other thing about that the right way or the wrong way is that it's giving the impression that somebody else knows better than we do. And that we're going to find this expert. And because another thing that really stops new entrepreneurs is imposter syndrome. They think, I'm just not good enough yet. And that is why we underprice ourselves. And I say we because I am in the program too, right? I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm constantly challenging myself. And certainly I can look back and look at the times when I underpriced myself, actually lost clients because I underpriced myself.
Right, because they think that you don't know enough because you're not charging enough, right? I've come across that personally.
Yeah. And so we live in this imposter syndrome, like, well, I'm not qualified yet to charge a certain amount of money. I'm not qualified, or I've only just started. And a really good book to read, if you like, for those information gatherers, is a book called The Millionaire Messenger by Brendan Burchard. And one of the things I like about it, and I read it a while ago, so I'm sure I'm not quoting it exactly, but one of the things I like about it is he talks about all the different ways you can be an expert, that you don't necessarily have to be a PhD with 20 years experience in consulting, because people are coming to you for whatever your service is or your product is
Mhm.
because of you, not because, well, actually, let me say it slightly differently. They're coming to you because they have a problem, and they think you might be able to solve that problem for them. And sure, are there really like big people out there that are guru people? There are, but there are also thousands and thousands and thousands of other people who are not gurus, but perfectly effective at solving problems, whatever they are.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes too, I think we downgrade our own experience and the fact that we actually might be the exact right person to solve that problem. But maybe we're never gonna have thousands of followers and stuff because that's not quite what we need for our business, but we do tend to stack ourselves up against these people in our fields and we go, "Oh yeah, this person has so many more followers than me. They must be smarter than me." And often it's not necessarily the case.
Right. For me, it's Mel Robbins. Do you know who that is?
Mhm.
She's a great. I'm always like, why does Mel Robbins have a TV show and I don't have a TV show? Yeah. The other thing about that is social media is a really good example of that. So people will come and say, "Oh, I know I should be posting on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever that is." And so the thing is for instance, LinkedIn being an example, I don't really like hanging out on LinkedIn. I don't. A lot of people are very successful finding clients on LinkedIn, and I've done those LinkedIn trainings, and I've done all.
Mhm.
I just don't like going on LinkedIn. Facebook is the place where I hang out, and then maybe Instagram. So if you if you're going into it, you say, "Well, I hate social media or I hate being on LinkedIn," you're not going to get all of a sudden happy about doing that. And even though you
Right.
can look and find people that are on LinkedIn that are very successful at using LinkedIn, it might not be the model for you, if even though it's working great for other people, if you don't like going on LinkedIn. Nothing against LinkedIn if anybody's listening.
No, I
Sorry.
mean, I've had the same a very similar, like, I know that that's where a lot of my clients are, but there's just something about it where it just doesn't make it as fun to spend time there.
Mhm.
And I know there's lots of great information. I know they're rolling out some features, and some of my opinion is biased from what it was even 5 years ago or so. But yeah, I mean, if you're not gonna follow through with something if you don't like
No,
doing it.
that's right. Yeah. And so this is a trap that sometimes entrepreneurs, both new and old, fall into, which is I'm doing it wrong. There must be a better way. Let me try this way. And you can't, it's one thing to start something, it's another thing to sustain something. If you can't
Mhm.
sustain it, then it's going to fall apart. And there's nothing sadder than a social media presence or profile that you go to and is nothing's on it. Like you can see a bunch of stuff and then it just kind of fades out. And it's just kind of sad and lonely.
Yeah, yeah, where they literally and you can tell they stopped posting once a month, once a week, then it was, like, 6 months, and then now it's like they haven't posted for a year, and you're like, "Are you still even in business?"
Yeah. Yeah. I'd almost rather not have anything on LinkedIn, for instance. We're not bashing LinkedIn. I'd almost rather. Instagram is kind of like that for me. My sister loves Instagram. She'll sit and create reels, and oh my God, I don't like that much. So you have to find, there's so many different possible ways to get new business, not the least of which, by the way, is just networking with people. We have
Mhm.
forgotten this, especially with the pandemic. We've forgotten that you could show up places and talk to people.
Oh,
And
no,
there's
no, no,
also,
that's a little crazy. I mean, I'm an introvert. No, I'm kidding.
this thing that's called a phone you can talk to. You can actually talk to people, you know? But we
Oh my
forget that we're
goodness.
like all about texting and all of our
Mhm.
stuff and creating relationship.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, even just in the very sense of, like, a romantic relationship, I text my boyfriend all day long while we work, but that's different than the conversations we have on the phone or in person, you know what I mean? Like, texting is not gonna be a deep conversation, and to the client point of things, once I get somebody on the phone, when I get them on, and usually it's a video call, it is just such a different experience
Mm,
than going back and forth in an email, and usually it's a much better experience.
yeah.
Even as an introvert, I can admit, like, you get so much more out of it, you understand each other better, you can understand them better as a client, like, doesn't mean it's easy or natural for some people to do, but it can get you so much deeper into what they need and how you can help them.
Yes, absolutely.
Ah, perfect. So, let's talk about, when you're helping somebody, if they come to you, how would you tell them to help themselves? Do you have a system or something that you work around, that helps new entrepreneurs?
Yes, excuse me, there's a very specific system that I take people through. And the first thing that I do is we talk about vision. It's I mean, you could use the analogy of a GPS system, right? You're not going to just get in your car and start driving. You're not going to put a random GPS address. You're going to know you need to
Mhm.
know where you're going. And one of the things about visioning is making the distinction, which by the way is what coaching is all about. Coaching is about helping people to make distinctions. So there's a distinction between a vision and a fantasy. A vision is something that you are ready and committed now. You don't have to have created it yet, but you're ready and committed to creating now. A fantasy is something that you imagine in the future would be really fun to do. Like for me, I'm going to be in my RV going around to bluegrass festivals around the United States. And, when I think about what I'm really going to do this summer, it's probably not.
Mhm.
So I'll go to a couple, but I'm not like leave. But that doesn't mean that can't be my fantasy. And I have no problems with fantasy, but I know you can't take action on that. So what we do is we create a vision. And we talk about your vision first. And there's a very specific way to do a vision, which is to use the same word and another part of the sentence very specifically. So you need to know details. So there's a big difference between saying I'm going to have a thriving business and saying I'm going to have a thriving business. I'll have a team of 6. I will be making 500K a year. I will be selling these products. And this again is vision, not I don't have anybody on my team right now.
Right.
So what I do is I take my clients through the process of the far off vision and then, well, what about 1 year from now? Okay, what about 3 months from now? Because I typically work with people to start for 6 months. And that's a good amount of time. Sometimes people get discouraged because they give themselves too short of a time frame. Like, I haven't created anything yet. And it takes a while to get some momentum.
And they think they can have all this stuff done in, like, 2 weeks?
Yeah. And it never, ever, ever happens that way. And if anybody ever reads something where you get 6 figures in 60 days, I'm just letting you know they did not start from scratch. They did not start from zero. And many of those like fancy schmancy programs, which are quite expensive, again, I'm not dissing them, just letting you know that you have to have foundation in place before those
Mhm.
types of things work. And as many people leave those types of programs very frustrated because they didn't accomplish it or they see other people doing these amazing things because they think they can launch on this one idea, but it takes some foundation. So that's the next thing that we work on, which is that foundation, which is a strategic action. So a phrase that I use sometimes to help people to figure out what to do in their strategy is to say, what's the next best thing for me to be doing right now? So
Right.
that's one question. The next question I will ask is, what's the fastest path to cash? Because a lot of times we'll spend hours on social media and whatever, and that's not the fastest path to cash. There's usually a
That's a
process.
really interesting way to put it because I think, yeah, a lot of us are like, well, we need to do all of these other things. And instead, it's literally, what can you do right now?
That can actually generate business and income in your
Hmm.
business. And uh, because we can get very, very, especially the chief enthusiasm officers among us, but or the expert officers who are still digging through spreadsheets from last month or whatever it is. So that is one way that you can prioritize which one of these activities is the fastest path to cash. And then once you're in action, what will happen is you will bump up against fears, doubts, procrastination. Procrastination is not like a disease, right? There are reasons that
Tell
people,
that to my mother. No, I'm kidding.
right? There are reasons that people procrastinate. In fact, I have a whole webinar about the procrastination. And one of the reasons is because you're afraid. You're
Hmm.
what if it doesn't work? What if I do all this work and it's useless and there's all kinds of things. And so I call those the hidden barriers, and you will bump up against them if you're in action. And that's how you will know that you're in action. So the good news is that it isn't until you get into action that you can address those fears. If I don't like making sales calls, and I never, because I fear rejection, let's just say,
Right, right.
never pick up the phone and call anybody and talk to them, I don't ever have to really face that fear. And I can post on social media all day long and not have that same fear because I don't, except maybe people don't like your stuff or something. And then sit
Yeah,
around
but
and go,
there's a little bit the rejection level is a lot different on
yeah,
social media versus somebody on the phone telling you face to face, no.
yeah, yes. I have a whole thing about rejection too. So that's where you can get hung up on these, what I call the hidden barriers. So we address those with my clients as well. So there's there's a the law of attraction. Oh, it's weird. My thing is a little reversed. So there's the law of attraction, like, yes, I'm just going to be here and it's going to flow toward me, which is great. I have
Mhm.
no issues with the law of attraction stuff. I think it's great. Then there's the hard line. Well, what are you going to work on today? And let's make that list and da, 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 da. And I think both have effectiveness to them. At the same time, I think there's more of a combination in action. It really depends on where your mindset is.
Right, right. No, I mean, I totally agree, and so tell me, when you take people through this process, why do you think that it works over and over again, starting with the vision and then helping them break through those barriers to take action? Why does that work for so many people?
One reason is because a lot of us aren't in action. We're thinking about action a lot. And we're going to be really good at that action when we start it, which is definitely not right now. It's definitely another time, right? And we're going to be very good at that so once you get into action. I have a client right now who's working on self-publishing, doing self-published books. It's a very interesting industry. A lot of people very successful at,
Mhm.
and she's encountering a lot of technical issues. Like she just tried to put the book up on Amazon, the margins were incorrect, and she's checking in with me saying, here's what's slowing me down. Very frustrating. And I haven't actually responded. I just got the email a little bit earlier today. I haven't responded yet, but my response is going to be, great, yay. If you weren't doing it, you wouldn't have this problem. So first, let's
Right.
acknowledge that you are actually doing it, because probably millions of people are not doing anything right now. And you're doing it. And yes, is it frustrating? It certainly is. That's why you really have to think long term. Give you One time I was teaching my son's friend how to ride a bike. And he was about 16 and he had actually never ridden a bike. Maybe he was about 14. And so I said, okay, going to get on the bike. And I said, you're going to go back and forth 20 times. Like he could do it, but he wasn't comfortable. I said, you're going to go
Yeah.
back and forth 20 times. I don't even want to talk to you until you counted to 20. back and forth on this little stretch of road. After about the sixth or eighth time, he was like, all right, I'm good. I'm like, okay, have fun. You don't really need the 20, but if you set your expectations for that, I'm not going to be any good at this until I've done it 20 times or 100 times, or I'm going to just give myself that long time, and then you'll do better than you think. So if you expect immediate results, you're going to be so frustrated.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with that. I think, I was actually just watching a TikTok video. Mrs. Space Cadet, I don't know if you've ever watched her TikTok.
Right.
She was hilariously training for a marathon, I think during COVID, and so she just posts a lot of very relatable workout content. And she just completed a 30-day workout and compared how easy it was on day 30
Mhm.
versus how hard it was on day 1. And she was like, "I cannot believe I stopped myself for so long saying I could never do this." And she's like, "It just took 30 days." 30 days. And I think a lot of us are kind of in that same boat where we quite honestly don't believe we can do it, so we stop ourselves from
Mhm.
doing it. And so I'm totally admit I'm very much a vision person. I like thinking about things, and I'm an Enneagram type 5, so I like gathering all the information. And then it's really hard for me to actually send out the emails with, "Hey, I have this new service that I would like to offer you," to people that already like us, that
Mhm.
like my team. And there's a mental block that happens, I think, for a lot of people. So when you force them into action, I think that's a really great combination. The
Mhm.
vision's great, but you also have to do something about it.
Yes, you definitely have to do something about it. I have a accountability partner. We have a running, so that means we're being accountable to what we said we were going to do. And a lot of times we show up and we haven't done it. And our running joke, that's not a joke, is, yeah, turns out if I don't do it, it doesn't get done.
It's so true, though.
How'd that
Why
happen?
is it so confusing?
It's so confusing. I don't know. It's been 2 weeks and I didn't do it. Turns out if I don't do it, it doesn't get done. So you got to do it. You got to do
Mhm.
it. It seems so silly, but you do have to do it. And that, of course, is a big reason that people hire a coach, is for accountability. People will be more accountable for the most part. Most people are more accountable to other people than they are to themselves. So because it's so easy to tell ourselves, to make inward rationalizations
Uh-huh.
about
Yep.
why we are not doing something, but much harder if you, especially if you paid money to somebody to help you.
Mhm.
Although I have had people that have purchased entire coaching programs and gone to 1 or 2 sessions and never shown up again.
Ugh, man. I mean, I know it happens. I know that happens. So, what are some ways if somebody's not quite ready to hire somebody or they just want to start seeing a little bit of success? What's some ways that somebody can get started on their own and kind of moving towards, better action, better vision, just overall, just a better business? Is there anything specific?
Sure. Well, I don't think it's like rocket science to write down a vision for yourself.
Hmm.
And that vision again, my main coaching on that is to be specific. And you have to think big, but not too big, right? You can't, this are the moments where you have to just be real with yourself. And am I ever going to do this thing that I say that I
Right.
want to do? You have to be real with yourself. And it's very easy to say, oh, I'm going to do that tomorrow, or, when the circumstances line up.
Hmm.
And I'm going to just let everybody know the fact right now, the circumstances are never going to line up. So
You mean that magic day never comes?
no, turns out it never comes. And you will never have any more time than you do right now. So stop pretending you will, because you will not. And in fact, one of my best coaching advice that I give to people is stop managing your time. The only thing that gets things done is managing priorities. Meaning,
Oh, I love that.
yeah, meaning you're there's always going to be dishes in the sink. Every single meal you ever have. I mean, I literally, this is so pathetic. Last night's dinner, I didn't even put it in a dish. I heated it up in the plastic container and ate it with a fork. And I still had a dish to do. I still had the fork.
Mhm.
I still had to deal with the plastic. And oh, am I going to throw this away? Recycle, dishwasher, whatever. I was still had a moment, right? So you're never not going to have that unless you literally eat out every single meal. Okay. So assuming most of us don't do that. So I like to use that as an example because my grandmother, my nice, beautiful Italian grandmother, would never think of going to bed with dishes in the sink. I mean, if she did that one time in her life, I'm almost positive that never happened. Okay.
Hell would have frozen over.
Hell would have frozen over. And she got to face that in the morning. A dish full of, a sink
Mhm.
full of dishes. She couldn't have done that. Okay. So let's just say you have dinner and maybe you're with your family or you're by yourself or whatever you are. And you say, okay, there's dishes in the sink now. And I have about an hour before I'm going to either go to bed or whatever I'm going to do. What should I do right now? I've been wanting, so for me, for the quiz, you receive some emails afterwards that are supporting you. And I have never quite finished that. I need to wrap it up. And it's like one of those tasks that just keeps showing up. And it's pretty good, but it's not great. So if I have an hour to go downstairs, for me, I work from home. So to go downstairs and finish that or do my dishes, the priority, if I'm looking to launch my business, not launch my business, but finish that business related task,
Mhm.
bring me more business, is to go downstairs and leave the dishes in the sink. Now, if in 1 hour my mother-in-law is coming over, I'm not thinking about my quiz emails. I'm thinking about the dishes in my sink because I don't want my mother-in-law to come to my house and see that there's dishes in the sink. Now, if I was really transformed, I would just go, I don't care. I'm still going downstairs to do the quiz email, right? But, most of us have some, but you can see how the priority is
Yeah, you
different.
can shift.
Yeah. And maybe if I get the emails done in the dishes done in 20 minutes, I could still use the rest of the time. But most of us don't operate that way. We operate out of what we think is expected from us, from a norm. We watch way too much television, social media stuff. I'm not being critical. I'm just saying too much sounds like I'm being critical. What I really mean is think about what are you prioritizing
Mhm.
because you're never going to have more time and it's never going to be easier. It just isn't. So just stop thinking it will be and instead prioritize differently.
Well, I mean, that is amazing. So we talked about your quiz a little bit. If somebody wanted to go learn what kind of entrepreneur they were and, you know, how to make this next step, how to tackle this, where would they go?
Well, all the resources are on my website, lizwolfcoaching.com. And I don't know if you caught the joke, but my last name is Wolf and I grew up on a sheep farm. Just
Oh,
saying.
that's true. Oh,
LizWolfCoaching.com, but it's Wolf with an E. So sometimes you believe the E off, but it's LizWolfCoaching.com. And then /quiz, or if you go to the website, it'll pop up and ask if you want to take the quiz. I also have other free
perfect.
quizzes on there as well. But there's a lot of content that's very helpful in that. In the quiz, the quiz is fun. It's just easy. It's 10
Mhm.
questions, but the content you get afterwards is very helpful to help you figure out what is slowing me down. And definitely, it's sort of build like, are you cut out for entrepreneurship? Everybody is cut out for entrepreneurship if they want to be, and
Right.
you could be successful.
You mean there's not a magical personality type that this works best for?
No, it turns out there isn't. There actually is not. There are people that are very successful that are not at all what you would think, and people that aren't that you would think, oh, she should have that in the bag. So, yes, there's a lot more to it than that, for sure.
Oh, lovely. Well, this has been a great conversation. Everything that we just talked about too will be linked in today's show notes for you guys. Liz, I appreciate this so much. There's a lot of good information that I'm going to go back and listen to for myself. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. It's really great. A lot of fun. I love laughing on podcasts. It's good. It's good.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's way more fun than being, straight
Yeah,
on
no,
serious.
it's
That's
serious stuff. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's not my jam anyway. Perfect. Well, thank you again.